The ocean pulls back without warning, revealing a seabed no one was meant to see. For a few seconds, it almost feels calm. Water retreats farther and farther, exposing rocks, coral, and stranded fish stretching hundreds of meters into the distance. People step forward, confused, curious. Some begin walking onto the wet sand, trying to understand what's happening. No one is shouting yet. No alarms. No warnings. Just silence, and a horizon that suddenly looks wrong. Then it begins. A low, distant roar builds beneath the air, deep, unnatural, growing louder with every second. The line between sea and sky starts to rise. What looks like a shadow becomes a wall. And it's moving fast, too fast. People turn. Some run, others freeze. Within moments, the wave reaches the shore. Water surges forward with unstoppable force, swallowing roads, buildings, and everything in its path. Calm turns to chaos in minutes, and by the time anyone understands what's happening, there's nowhere left to go. December 26th, 2004. Morning spreads quietly across the Indian Ocean. In Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and India, the coastline wakes to something ordinary. Fishing boats push out into calm water. Markets open. Tourists walk along beaches, still carrying the slow rhythm of the holiday season. Nothing feels unusual. The sea is steady. The sky is clear, and life continues exactly as it did the day before. Along the coast of northern Sumatra, in Aceh, fishermen prepare their nets. In Thailand's resort towns, visitors move toward the shoreline, cameras in hand. In Sri Lanka, trains run on schedule, carrying passengers along tracks that trace the ocean's edge. Everything is connected to the sea. Livelihoods. Movement. Routine. No one is thinking about what lies beneath it. But far below the surface, about 30 kilometers under the ocean floor, something has been building for decades. The Indian Plate continues to move northeast, slowly forcing itself beneath the Burma Plate along a massive boundary known as the Sunda Trench. It doesn't happen all at once. Pressure builds in silence. Year after year, the plates lock together, unable to move freely. Energy accumulates. Stress increases. The ocean floor above them holds steady, hiding the tension below. Until it can't anymore. Across nearly 1,300 kilometers of fault line, the strain has reached its limit, and no one above can feel it yet. There are no warning sirens in this region, no detection systems scanning the ocean for sudden displacement. Unlike the Pacific, where tsunamis are more frequent, the Indian Ocean has no coordinated alert network. Because events like this are rare. The last major tsunami here happened centuries ago. Memory fades. Preparedness fades with it. Communities grow closer to the water, building homes, businesses, and entire economies along the shoreline. Risk becomes invisible, not because it isn't there, but because it hasn't been seen in generations. A child laughs near the edge of the water. A vendor arranges goods beside the beach. A man checks his phone, waiting for a call that hasn't come yet. Above the surface, everything is calm. Below it, the earth is under strain. The locked boundary begins to shift, not gradually, but suddenly. At 07:58,053 local time, the fault ruptures. And in that instant, everything changes. At 07:58,053 in the morning, the rupture begins beneath the Indian Ocean. It doesn't crack like a single break. It tears open. Along a fault stretching more than 1,200 kilometers, the boundary between the Indian Plate and the Burma Plate suddenly slips. Rock that has been locked for decades gives way in seconds, releasing energy on a scale rarely seen in human history. The seafloor lifts. In some places, it rises several meters almost instantly. That single movement displaces billions of tons of water above it, and the ocean reacts. Shockwaves race outward through the earth as the rupture continues, lasting not seconds, but nearly 10 minutes. The longest faulting ever recorded. The planet itself vibrates, sending energy through continents far beyond the epicenter. On land, people feel it. Buildings shake in Indonesia, walls tremble in Sri Lanka. In parts of India and Thailand, the motion is strange but not immediately terrifying. It feels like a strong earthquake, but nothing more. No one sees what's happening beneath the surface. Because above the deep ocean, the waves are almost invisible. They don't rise like crashing surf. They stretch wide and low, moving at speeds between 500 to 800 kilometers per hour, faster than most aircraft. In deep water, they pass unnoticed. Ships above them feel almost nothing. But the energy is there, moving outward in all directions, toward coastlines filled with people who have no idea what's coming. There is no warning system in the Indian Ocean, no network of sensors to detect the sudden rise of the seabed, no alarms to trigger evacuation. The earthquake has already happened, but the disaster has only just begun. As the waves travel, they carry the force of the entire rupture, energy equivalent to millions of tons of explosive power. The ocean becomes a conveyor of destruction, silently advancing toward land. Closer to Sumatra, the distance is short. There is almost no time. In places like Banda Aceh, the first waves will arrive within minutes. Further away, in Sri Lanka, India, and Thailand, the delay stretches longer. An hour. 2 hours. Enough time to escape. But only if someone knows. No one does. The waves begin to transform. As they approach shallower coastal waters, their speed decreases, but their height increases. Water that once spread across kilometers compresses into rising walls. The ocean gathers itself, drawing upward, preparing to break. A man looks out at the horizon, sensing something is wrong, but unable to explain it. A child stands barefoot on wet sand, watching the sea behave in ways it never has before, and far beneath them, the energy continues to move, unstoppable, expanding, closing the distance with every second. What began as a shift in the Earth's crust is now racing toward millions of lives. And there is still no warning. The waves do not stop. They spread. Across the Indian Ocean, the energy released beneath Sumatra continues to travel outward, reaching coastlines at different times, but with the same relentless force. In northern Indonesia, there is almost no delay. Within minutes, the first walls of water arrive. In Aceh, entire communities are caught in the open. The sea that had pulled back moments earlier now returns as a rising surge, dark, fast, and impossible to outrun. Buildings near the shore begin to disappear beneath it. Roads vanish. Boats are lifted and thrown inland. There is no organized response, no time to understand, only reaction. People run, but the water moves faster. Further away, in Thailand, the ocean behaves differently, but just as dangerously. Along beaches in Phuket and Khao Lak, the sea suddenly retreats, exposing hundreds of meters of seabed. Fish flop on the sand. Coral and rocks appear where water should be. People move closer. Some point. Some laugh. Some take photographs. They don't know this is the warning. Minutes later, the horizon begins to change. A white line appears in the distance. It grows. The water comes back, not as a gentle return, but as a force building on itself, wave after wave, each one stronger than the last. The first surge reaches the shore, sweeping across roads and pulling people off their feet. Then the second arrives, larger, faster, carrying debris. A child screams for someone who isn't there. The third wave rises higher, and by then, it's already too late. In Sri Lanka, nearly 2 hours after the earthquake, the water arrives without warning. Along the eastern coast, the ocean surges inland, flooding homes, streets, and railway lines that run dangerously close to the shore. At 9:30 a.m., near the southern coastline, a passenger train carrying more than 1,700 people moves along its route. Then, the sea reaches it. Water crashes over the tracks, lifting the train from its path. Carriages overturn. Metal twists. The force drags everything sideways, pulling people into the flood. It becomes one of the deadliest rail disasters in history. And still, the waves keep coming. On the eastern coast of India, in Tamil Nadu, the pattern repeats. The sea advances beyond its usual boundary, pushing inland between 500 meters to over a kilometer in some areas. Fishing villages are struck directly. Boats are destroyed. Homes built close to the shore are swept away within seconds. In Nagapattinam, the water rises rapidly. People try to climb, run, hold on to anything. But the current is too strong. A phone keeps ringing in the water. Across regions, communication begins to collapse. Power lines fail. Roads are blocked. Signals disappear. What is happening in one country is unknown in another. There is no shared warning, no coordinated response. Only isolated moments of impact, each coastline facing the same force, alone. In Indonesia, entire neighborhoods are erased within minutes. In Thailand, multiple waves continue to arrive, each carrying more debris, cars, wood, fragments of buildings, turning the water into a moving field of destruction. The pattern is the same everywhere. Water pulls back, then returns, stronger each time. And in between those waves, there is a brief, dangerous silence, just enough for people to believe it's over, before it begins again. The ocean does not stop after the first strike. It repeats. And with every return, the damage multiplies. The impact reaches its peak. Across thousands of kilometers of coastline, the ocean no longer behaves like water. It behaves like force. In northern Sumatra, waves rise between 15 to 30 meters along the western coast, slamming into land with enough pressure to erase entire settlements. In Banda Aceh, water surges more than 3 kilometers inland, carrying debris, vehicles, and fragments of buildings through the streets like projectiles. Structures don't just flood, they collapse. Concrete cracks. Wooden homes vanish completely. Entire neighborhoods are reduced to open ground within minutes. The line between land and sea disappears as the water pushes deeper, swallowing everything in its path. And it doesn't stop at the first wave. It keeps coming. In Lhonga, waves arrive one after another, some reaching heights comparable to coconut trees. The second and third waves are the most destructive, arriving within minutes of each other. By the time the water begins to recede, another surge is already forming. There is no safe pause. Only brief moments of silence between destruction. In Sri Lanka, the force moves through cities and coastal towns, flooding roads, homes, and railways. Water carries entire objects, cars, boats, building materials, turning them into weapons inside the current. In some areas, the flow reaches depths of several meters, covering ground floors and rising toward upper levels. People are no longer running. They are trying to survive. The current decides everything. It pulls, lifts, drags. A man clings to a piece of wood as the water carries him through a flooded street. A mother reaches for her child, then loses sight of them in the movement. The ocean has no direction now. It is everywhere. In Thailand, at Khao Lak, waves reach heights of up to 10 meters along the coast, with water pushing nearly 2 kilometers inland. Hotels, roads, and entire resort areas are overwhelmed. Structures designed for stability are overtaken by the sheer volume of water pressing against them. Glass shatters. Walls give way. The ground itself disappears beneath the flood, and still, the waves continue. In some areas, 3 or more major surges arrive, each one carrying more debris than the last. What begins as water becomes a moving field of destruction, wood, metal, vehicles, fragments of homes, colliding with anything still standing. Escape becomes nearly impossible. There is no clear path, only water, and whatever floats within it. In India, along the eastern coastline, waves push inland between hundreds of meters to over 2 kilometers in some regions. Entire fishing communities are hit directly. Boats are lifted from the shore and carried deep into land. Houses built close to the sea are erased almost instantly. The damage spreads beyond the coastline, into streets, into homes, into lives. Across multiple countries, the same pattern repeats. Different locations, same force. Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Thailand, India, all experiencing the same unstoppable surge. Communication breaks down almost completely. Roads are blocked by debris, power systems fail, entire regions become inaccessible within hours. What is happening in one place cannot be shared with another. Each location faces the disaster in isolation, and in the middle of it all, one moment stands out. In Thailand, a 10-year-old girl named Tilly Smith stands on the beach, watching the ocean behave in a way she recognizes. Days earlier, she had learned about tsunamis in school, how the sea recedes before the wave arrives. She doesn't hesitate. She tells her parents. She warns others nearby. Her voice carries urgency where there is none yet. People begin to move away from the shore. Minutes later, the wave arrives. The beach is empty. Dozens of lives are saved, not by warning systems, but by one moment of understanding. And elsewhere, that knowledge never reaches in time. The water begins to settle, but only slowly. Large areas remain submerged. Debris covers the ground. Buildings that once stood are gone. Roads are no longer visible. Entire coastlines have changed shape within hours. What was land is now water, and what was once full of life has fallen silent. The scale is no longer local. It is global. One earthquake, one shift beneath the ocean floor, has transformed coastlines across an entire ocean basin. And as the waves finally lose their energy, the destruction they leave behind begins to reveal itself. When the water finally begins to pull back, it doesn't reveal relief. It reveals loss. The same force that carried everything inland now drags it away, leaving behind silence, debris, and people searching for anything familiar. Roads are gone. Homes are flattened. Entire neighborhoods have been reduced to scattered remains. And in that silence, reality begins to settle. Across Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and India, survivors step through what used to be their lives. They move carefully, navigating broken structures and flooded ground, trying to understand what has just happened. Many are injured. Some are disoriented. Most are looking for someone. A man walks through debris, calling a name that no one answers. A child stands still, surrounded by strangers, waiting for a face that never returns. Families have been separated in seconds. Some will never reconnect. In Banda Aceh, entire communities have been erased. In Sri Lanka, thousands are missing along the coastline. In India, fishing villages are left without homes, without boats, without any clear way forward. The scale becomes clearer with every hour. Hundreds, thousands, then tens of thousands. By the end, across 14 countries, more than 227,000 people are gone. And those who survive face something just as difficult: living through what remains. In many areas, infrastructure has completely collapsed. Roads are blocked. Communication systems are down. Hospitals are overwhelmed or destroyed. Clean water becomes scarce. Food supplies are disrupted. The disaster does not end when the waves stop. It continues. In shelters, in temporary camps, in open spaces where people gather with nothing but what they could hold on to. Entire populations are displaced, forced to leave behind everything they once depended on. The physical damage is visible. The emotional damage is not. Survivors replay moments they cannot change. Decisions made in seconds. Voices they heard, and then lost. Some speak, others remain silent. Among them is a man named Arif, a fisherman from the coast of Aceh. That morning, he had been preparing his boat when the earthquake struck. He felt the ground shake, but like many others, he did not expect what would follow. When the water began to rise, he ran, grabbing his younger brother and moving toward higher ground. The first wave missed them. The second did not. They were separated in the current. Arif held on to debris, pulled through water filled with fragments of homes and lives. When the movement slowed, he found himself far inland, injured but alive. His brother was gone. Days later, after searching through shelters and makeshift camps, he found him, alive, rescued by others who had carried him to safety. Not everyone finds that ending. A phone keeps ringing, but no one answers it. A name is called, again and again, into empty space. The disaster leaves more than destruction. It leaves absence. And as the immediate shock begins to fade, a different reality takes its place, one that stretches far beyond the moment of impact. Rebuilding will take years. Recovery will take longer, because what was lost cannot always be replaced. And for many, the hardest part has only just begun. In the hours that follow, the scale begins to spread beyond the shoreline, not just across countries, but across the world. News travels slowly at first, fragmented, unclear, impossible to fully grasp. Reports of flooding, collapsed buildings, missing people. Then the numbers begin to rise. And they don't stop. Governments declare emergencies. Airports fill with aid workers. Military aircraft begin moving supplies across borders. Ships reroute. Helicopters lift off toward areas that no longer have roads. Because many places can't be reached by land anymore. What was once connected is now isolated. In Indonesia, entire regions remain cut off. In Sri Lanka and India, coastal communities wait without food, without clean water, without communication. Hospitals are overwhelmed, treating injuries with limited supplies. The response begins to build, from neighboring countries, then from continents away. Within days, one of the largest humanitarian efforts in history is underway. More than $14 billion in aid is pledged globally. Organizations move quickly to deliver food, medical care, and temporary shelter to millions of displaced people. But the need is immediate and constant. Clean water becomes a priority, as wells are contaminated by salt water. Disease becomes a threat, spreading easily in crowded shelters under tropical conditions. Relief teams work to prevent outbreaks, setting up sanitation systems, distributing supplies, trying to stabilize what remains. Because survival is still not guaranteed. In many areas, the damage goes deeper than what can be seen. Farmland has been flooded with seawater, leaving soil infertile. Fishing industries collapse overnight. Boats destroyed, equipment lost, coastlines altered. Entire economies stall. Livelihoods disappear. And rebuilding becomes more than construction. It becomes survival over time. A man stands beside what used to be his home, holding a piece of wood that once formed part of a wall. There is nothing else left to return to. Children gather in temporary camps, surrounded by unfamiliar faces, adjusting to a world that changed in minutes. And across all of it, the same question begins to form. How did no one see this coming? The answer leads to change. Because one of the most critical failures was not the earthquake, it was the silence that followed it. There had been no warning system in the Indian Ocean, no network capable of detecting a tsunami and alerting millions of people in time. The waves had hours to travel, but no message moved with them. That absence becomes impossible to ignore. In the months that follow, global efforts begin to build a new system. Sensors are placed across the ocean floor. Monitoring stations are established. Communication networks are designed to send alerts within minutes. The Indian Ocean Tsunami Warning System is created, not as a reaction, but as a necessity. Scientific research expands rapidly. Data from the earthquake is studied in detail: how the rupture spread, how the waves traveled, how the energy moved across the planet. Satellites, seismographs, and ocean sensors provide insight into an event that reshaped not just coastlines, but understanding. Because this earthquake did more than cause destruction. It moved the Earth itself. The planet shifted slightly on its axis. The length of a day changed by microseconds. Vibrations circled the globe multiple times, measurable weeks after the event. The scale reaches beyond human experience. And yet, it is remembered through human loss. In the years that follow, rebuilding continues. Homes are reconstructed, roads are cleared, communities slowly return, but the marks remain. on land, on infrastructure, and in memory. Some areas recover faster, others take decades, and some never fully return to what they were, because disasters like this do not end when the water disappears. They stay, in the shape of coastlines, in the design of cities, in the systems created to prevent the next one, and in the stories carried by those who lived through it. A disaster that began beneath the ocean changed how the world listens to it. Because now, when the sea moves in ways it shouldn't, someone is watching, someone is listening. And next time, there may be time to run.